Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have a ThinkPad X1 Yoga. And it's been a while since we featured one of these. I actually featured the Gen 1 way back, and if you want to see what it looked like at the beginning, click over here and you can do a bit of a comparison. I don't have the Gen 1 in my collection anymore. It actually went on to another user and is still being used right now. Anyway, getting back to this device. So this is the X1 Yoga Gen 6. It was launched in April of 2021, and uniquely it came only in this aluminum, or for those of us in North America, aluminum chassis that's got this dark storm gray look to it. And in the light you can kind of see that it's a bit bright, and in the shadow it's quite dark, and in real life it's somewhere in between. Some of you will not like the shinier edges. I'm not a huge fan myself, but the device does feel pretty solid, and the only real wear and tear on this one was actually some hinge wear that we see here and here, which is probably from it being slid around a table, something like that. Let's dive right in on what we're looking at. This is a newer model, so we do have a 16 by 10 aspect ratio on the panel. It is 14 inches, and it came in essentially two resolutions. A 1920 by 1200 that came in a variety of different combinations, from anti-glare, anti-reflect, 400 nit, 500 nit panels, but they all sported 100% sRGB, which means that this is a very color accurate device. You could also get it in a 3840 by 2400 500 nit panel, 1500 to 1 contrast ratio, and that's 100% DCI-P3. In terms of CPUs, we are talking 11th generation Intel. There was two i5s and two i7s available, and they all sported Intel Iris Xe graphics. RAM, unfortunately, but no surprise in the X1 Yoga line, is soldered to the board, and it either came in 8, 16, or 32 gigabytes of low power DDR4 4200 and 66 megahertz. We do have a very nice soft touch trackpad with some good soft click buttons, and of course the iconic track point in the middle of the keyboard. Newer versions of the Yoga, this one included, do not feature the lift and lock keyboard anymore. Instead, they've recessed the deck in kind of this area here so the keys actually don't stick out, and they use a software lock once the screen extends past a certain threshold in its tilt. While not mechanically as cool, it is practical in the sense that it's got less physical moving parts for failure and of course manufacturing. So with that being said, let's tour the rest of the machine. We do have a power button that can double as a fingerprint reader up here in the corner. It's not mounted to the side like some of the older Yogas. We do have a 720p web camera up here at the top with Think Privacy Shutter available right there. And you could also get this with the infrared Hello, Windows Hello camera. So you need to be on the lookout for a second hole there if you're expecting it to come with that feature. Moving on to the ports, we've got on this side here the micro Kensington lock slot, USB A 3.2 Gen 1, a headphone microphone combo jack, and then over here we have the ThinkPad Lenovo pen storage, and this one is a bit unique in its shape and of course its color, so we wanted to make sure that that matched, so we'll put that back. Along the front we have absolutely nothing, and then on the other side we have two USB Thunderbolt, well, two USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 ports. One is intended to be used as charging, the other one can be used for docks and accessories, another USB 3.2 Gen 1, and HDMI 2.0. And that brings us to the end of the ports. So, really quick, even though there won't be a whole lot to see, we're going to open this up under the document camera. So we'll switch over to that now. I have my fancy dancy screwdriver kit there, which I've reviewed on the channel previously. Still using it, still love it. And we'll just go ahead and put this underneath, open up our toolkit, and start loosening some screws. The reset switch, if you need to use it, is located just above this screw right here. And if these are like all the other ones, we're going to remove the pen before we disassemble the device. And we'll grab a plastic pry tool, and it looks like the top center of the case lifts, and that is really, really effortless. Good job. Okay, As I expected, there is not a whole lot to see here. We do have a soldered on Wi-Fi card, as we expected to see with a lot of these newer Intel machines, which you'll have mixed feelings about, of course. This battery is kind of unique in the sense that there is a literal cutout in it so that the pen can fit in there, which is really, really cool. Rather, I would imagine that there's probably a whole lot of different ways they could have solved this, like moving the pen further down on the chassis. Interesting to see that they decided to go with that instead. We can see the charging cable for the pen right there, plugged into this board here. We see the CMOS battery disappears underneath the main battery. And we know by looking at the keyboard on the other side that if we wanted to take the keyboard out, we would have to disassemble the entire device. Now, it would appear, thankfully, due to the cutout, that I didn't actually have to remove the pen before disassembly. It's just a habit that's kind of died hard. We do have our M.2 2280 NVMe drive with a shield over top, which is also holding that down into place. We have these two very small profile, what appear to be owl wing style fans that exhaust out the back and suck in air through the bottom of the machine. This would be, of course, our CPU heatsink right here. And realistically, there is not a whole lot to service on the inside of these sorts of devices. You've gotten used to me saying that, soldered on Wi-Fi cards and RAM are not necessarily ideal. We can swap out the SSD, we can swap out the battery, we can swap out the CMOS. Keyboard is a bit of a challenge because we have to essentially disassemble the entire machine. We have the speakers here that, again, are pretty easily removable. Overall, though, you're buying these at the configuration that they come from the factory. That being said, though, this is not a bad configuration. This is the i7 1185G7, and it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and for the right price, it would be a very good machine. Now, these are still coming down in price. They average about 700 Canadian dollars. They are on the upper end, but they will continue to drop down in price as they come off of warranty, although they're not as common as some of the other machines that we see. So we're going to throw the cover back on, do a quick boot test, and then finish up our conclusions. Alrighty, so now that we have this X1 Yoga G6 back together, let's open up the lid, power it on, and see what we get for a boot time. Alright, nothing to sneeze at all. A little slow getting past the Lenovo boot logo, but that is a-okay. We have a very snappy, responsive machine. That screen is absolutely gorgeous. A little on the glossy side, but on high brightness you won't notice it. As I mentioned earlier, this is running the i7 with the 16 gigs of RAM. I don't know explicitly which panel this is, but it is the 1920 by 1200. Whether or not it's the anti-glare or not, I couldn't pull down from the specs that I do have on hand. But this is overall a pretty good machine, especially if you like that pen support. And I have used some tablets in the past. However, I have found that for my workflow currently, a tablet isn't necessary. But if you are in a college or a university, space is at a premium, you're trying to take lecture notes, you're trying to do it quickly, things like calculus, math, chemistry, physics, anything where you have to draw diagrams and write at the same time. I have always found these to be very, very helpful. And obviously, artists, architects, anybody that needs to do quick sketches will appreciate it as well. Some might be immediately turned off by the size of the pen. However, I think you'll find that the size of the pen in the hand versus your perceptions of it are still actually quite favorable. Most people, what they really need is to feel the pen on the back of their hand just as much as they do on the front. So my hands are, I guess, what you would call maybe small to average sized, and I find the pen still to be pretty comfortable to use. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, make sure you're leaving them in the comment section down below. I'd also like to hear from you guys as well. Have you used a ThinkPad Yoga X1 or not? What was your experience like? What did you use it for? And would you get another one? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.